We've reached a point where food arrives in minutes, entertainment is available instantly, and almost anything can be delivered to our doorsteps with just a few taps. So, what happens when the things we actually want in life take months, years, or even decades to achieve? What happens when you can't download confidence, you can't order discipline, and success can't be delivered overnight? That's what I want to talk about today because I think this one mindset shift explains why so many people struggle to stick with things long enough to see real results. Last week I was talking to a friend. Every couple of months he'd tell me about his new hobby or goal. First it was going to the gym, then it was his new business idea, and now it's learning to edit. And every time it'd start exactly the same way. He'd watch videos about it, research everything, and buy whatever he needed. Talk about how excited he was, but then a few weeks later, he'd completely lose interest. At first I thought he just hadn't found the right thing for him yet, and it was a good thing that he was just trying to find out what he enjoys. But after watching the same pattern repeat itself over and over again, I realized what was actually happening. He loved imagining the future version of himself that knows everything about a topic or is a master of tennis, but he didn't enjoy the process that was required to get there. The gym sounded great until it meant waking up early and training even when he didn't feel like it. Starting a business sounded exciting until it meant doing hours of work without seeing any real results. Learning a skill sounded rewarding until he realized how bad he was at the beginning. And honestly, I don't think that was unusual. I think most of us do this. We become obsessed with that final result, the dream body, the money, confidence, the successful career, but we rarely think about what those things actually look like on a daily basis. Because the reality is usually far less exciting than the picture that we have in our heads, and that's where most people quit. Not because they don't want success, but because they don't want the process. I learned this lesson myself when I decided I wanted to learn the guitar. I was convinced I'd be playing songs in no time. I imagined myself effortlessly picking it up and gradually getting better every week, but what actually happened was very different. My fingers hurt, and every melody I tried to play sounded terrible. And after weeks of practice, it genuinely felt like I was barely improving, if at all. And I remember sitting there one evening, frustrated out of my mind, wondering how people ever got good at this. Every person you have ever admired for being skilled at something probably went through the exact same experience. The difference was that they just kept going, regardless of how hard it was at the time, and they were able to do that because they loved every moment of improving. What I was experiencing wasn't a sign that I was failing, it was the process, the frustration, the slow progress, and the mistakes, because that's what improvement actually feels like, and I think that's something people don't talk about enough. We see someone's final masterpiece, but not the thousands of hours they poured into it. We see the finished product and completely ignore everything that happened behind the scenes, the years of practice, the setbacks, the failures. The days they didn't feel motivated but pushed through nonetheless. The reality is, almost everything worth having is built in moments that don't feel rewarding at all. And that's difficult to accept when we've become used to getting everything instantly. I think modern life has made this challenge even harder. If we're hungry, we get food in a few clicks. If we're bored, thousands of shows and movies in our pockets. If we need something, it's delivered next day. We've become surrounded by convenience, and while convenience itself isn't a bad thing, it can quietly train us to expect quick rewards in everything. Then when we approach things like fitness, studying, business, relationships, or personal growth with the same expectations, we want immediate progress, immediate results, and immediate proof that our efforts aren't being wasted. But maybe nothing's wrong at all. I vividly remember another conversation I had with a close friend years ago now. We were talking about our futures and what we wanted from life, and he said something that has always stuck with me. He said, "I just wish I could skip to the part where I've made it," and at the time I agreed and we laughed about it, but the older I got, the more I've realized how many people still think that way. We want the rewards without the graph, the outcome without the uncertainty, and the achievement without repetition. We want to skip to chapter 20 while we're still living on chapter 1. But life doesn't work that way. You can't rush confidence, you can't download experience, you can't order the maturity to your front door. Some things can only be earned slowly, and strangely, that's exactly what makes them valuable. Because if confidence came instantly, everyone would have it. If discipline was easy, it wouldn't mean anything, and if success happened overnight, nobody would appreciate it. The struggle is part of the value. The process is what gives the result its meaning. These days, whenever I start something new, I try not to obsess over where it might lead. I try and focus on whether I can enjoy the daily process, because goals are still important, they give us direction, but they're not where the growth is or where most of your life is spent. Most of your life is spent in the in-between, the ordinary days, the repeated actions, the small decisions that nobody else sees. And if you can learn to appreciate these moments instead of constantly chasing the next result, you'll have something that most people will never fully develop: the ability to stay consistent. So if you're working towards something right now, stop asking yourself how quickly you can get there. Ask yourself whether you're willing to fall in love with the process. Because although the destination might inspire you to start, the process is actually what gets you there, and more often than not, it's where the real growth happens anyway.